Good morning. And am I on? My name is Jeff Phillip. I am on your Board of Trustees for Cedars Unitarian Universalist Church, and I want to welcome you this morning. And also call your attention to a few things coming up. They are listed in your order of service on the back. One is that this coming Wednesday on December 6th, there is an LGBTQ plus and allies support group that is being held at Cedar Center at 6 p.m. So if you know folks that would be interested or would benefit from that, please pass the word.
If you'd care to bring some treats to share, I'm sure that there'll be lots of calories consumed, so we don't want there to be a calorie deficit that day. And then that next Sunday, we will do a special collection for the YWCA, I wrote this down, Alive Shelter, which supports people experiencing domestic violence. After that special collection that we'll do next Sunday, at our Christmas Eve service, which will be at 6 p.m. on Christmas Eve, which is a Sunday, we'll also be accepting physical donations to provide to the YWCA Alive Shelter. So thank you. I also want to introduce Joseph, and I forgot the sheet. Joseph Anderson, Bednarik. Of course, I left it down there. That's really helpful. Who is the co-publisher of Copper Canyon Press, a nonprofit literary publisher dedicated to poetry. He studied philosophy at Haverford College. I wonder how many people get that mixed up. Who knows? And speaks regularly at UU congregations. He's also a member of Quimper UU in Port Townsend. Thank you and welcome.
So it is a pleasure to be here this morning, and I have the great honor to do opening words. Given the complications and the pain and the war that's going on in the Middle East, specifically Gaza, I wanted to bring forward this poem that I think about frequently. It's written by Anna Sweer, who was a nurse in World War II. She was captured during the Warsaw Ghetto uprising, and she was 30 minutes away from being executed. And thankfully her life was spared, and she could go on to compose brilliant poetry, of which this is one. It's called There Is a Light in Me. Whether in daytime or in nighttime, I always carry inside a light. In the middle of noise and turmoil, I carry silence. Always, I carry light and silence.
Thank you, Audrey. Our relationship to light has evolved to the point where we can take it for granted. When it gets dark, we have access to light on demand. We never have to go without. Until suddenly, unexpectedly, we lose it. 40 years ago, on Thanksgiving Day in 1983, there was a huge storm in Washington state, and the power went out. It was during the day, so losing the light wasn't the issue just yet. The thousands of inedible turkeys were the talk of the town for decades, and after this memorable holiday, most people recount how the day was ruined. But one of my more contemplative friends had a story that stayed with me. She spoke of how the quiet that fell over her household had a calming effect. For whatever reason, her family was able to quickly pivot to a plan B for food prep: grilled hot dogs with sides and salads that were already prepared, repositioning the seating to the living room where the fireplace was, and eating their meal from plates on their laps, sitting in a close circle for warmth. My takeaway from this friend's Thanksgiving story, and the reason I remember her story and not my own from 40 years ago, is that her family turned the circumstances into a winning situation. They transformed the day into an intimate gathering, focusing on togetherness rather than football and food. When the afternoon came and darkness fell, the light from the candles and the fireplace and the absence of humming from appliances brought an atmosphere of intimacy, allowing space for discussion and reflection. They played games by candlelight and ended up making a beautiful family memory. We haven't had to plan our days around natural light and the setting of the sun for so long, we take light on demand as a given. We don't really have to think about light and where it comes from or how to access it, other than making sure we don't run out of replacement light bulbs in the cupboard. Our ancestors needed to be creative, mindful, and efficient with their light. Back in the day, when light wasn't so easy to access on demand, traditions, myths, and legends were formed around lighting in the winter months, bringing with them beauty and appreciation for all the ways lights bring sacredness to our winter celebrations. I dedicate the lighting of the chalice to our relationship to light. When we are mindful of it, it becomes sacred. Please join me in the affirmation printed in your order of service. As we come together to worship, we remind ourselves to treat all people kindly because we are one family, to take good care of the earth because it is our home, and to live lives full of love and goodness because that is how we will all become the best that we can be. It's time for our first hymn. I have decided to take Time for All Ages off Joseph's hands because I wanted to share one of our old traditions. Winter is all about tradition, right? Because I wanted to find out from you all what your favorite thing is about winter in general, whether it has to do with holidays or family gatherings or the weather. But in order to do this, I have to get one of our favorite tools out. I'm getting the infamous vessel. Okay, remember, it's fragile. I'm going to gently toss it around to people. And when I toss it to you, I definitely want you to give your very best answer. But please know you are welcome to pass. So I'll start. My favorite part of winter is, there's so many I can't think of it all. Just being with my family coming home, spending a lovely time over the December 25th weekend or week. Would you like the vessel? Fran. Good catch.
My favorite part of winter is Christmas lights. I'm putting mine up today.
And Fran says her favorite part is Christmas lights. She's putting them up today.
My least favorite is the short days, and my favorite is also the Christmas decorations that so many people spend so much time and effort doing. Very nice.
Christmas decorations.
My favorite part of winter is Christmas music, and I know that's the bane of many other folks. I love it.
I think it's like what you said, family getting together. Great.
So every year, Arlene and I go on a solstice walk, and we wait until it's dark. We go up to Fort Ward with no flashlights, and we stumble around in the dark.
Nice.
Long one here.
Good catch, David.
My favorite is the travel we have done. Our daughter was born on New Year's Day, which is very close to Christmas, and so we've always historically done a travel expedition to commemorate her birthday. So we would always go somewhere right around the New Year's. But now she's on her own, so we will be trying to find new traditions.
Snow, of course. Are you ready to toss the vessel back to me? Okay. Is there anybody else before I?
My favorite is the 11 days between December 14th and December 25th, when I have my birthday, my wedding anniversary, and Christmas.
Very nice. I need you to toss it back. Okay. Anybody else?
My favorite is the metaphor of light leaving despair, going with the darkness, and then celebrating the solstice. The light.
That's lovely. Thank you. Thank you. Can you toss this? Thank you. All right. Well, okay, one more. Susan.
My favorite part is listening to my sons read the night before Christmas to my grandchildren.
That's lovely. Thank you. All right, I'm going to put the vessel away, tuck it safely back in its place, and remember, my son Archer, who brought the vessel to us, I always have his blessing when we do the vessel toss. So thanks for sharing, everybody. I hope everybody heard, and I'd love for people to talk about this after service. We can get some more ideas. Yeah. Each week, we share our joys and sorrows, so we don't have to bear our sorrows alone, and that we can help you celebrate your joys. If you do have a joy or a sorrow to share today, please come forward, give us your name and a brief sentence or two sharing your joy or sorrow. If you have a sorrow, put a stone in the water. If you have a joy, put a little bit of water in the bowl. And as a reminder, we do not live stream or record joys and sorrows. The sorrows that are left unspoken. And put a little bit of water in the bowl for the joys that someday we hope you'll share with us. Thank you. We give to remind ourselves how many gifts we have to offer. We give to remember that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. We give because we believe in music and sacred space. We give with the faith that together we have enough. Will the ushers please come forward for the offering? Thank you for your generous gifts.
Good morning, everyone. I was so awed to watch you play the vessel game. That was amazing. I am totally swiping that. I'm going to take that. I'm going to introduce that to congregations all over the world. That is fantastic. So happy holidays and happy holy days. I just love that interplay between holiday and holy day. And as we begin this morning's sermon, I feel compelled to make one thing perfectly clear. I believe in Santa Claus. And I know you do too, because you believe in an invisible vessel bouncing around this congregation. So in spirit of that core Unitarian Universalist principle of a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, each Christmas season I revisit the issue of Santa Claus and open my heart and open my imagination to the reality of Santa Claus. And each year, no matter how much quote-unquote real-world evidence stacks up against the great saint, during the darkest and coldest time of the year, Santa comes sneaking down my metaphorical and my metaphysical chimney and leaves these miraculous treasures in my stocking. Now, my belief in Santa wasn't always the case. There was a stretch of time in my 20s when I was a hard-headed unbeliever, and I actually scoffed at the idea. And then one summer I went back to my parents' house, and we set up the movie projector. I don't know if you remember movie projectors. And we watched these old family movies. And one of them was A Christmas when I was 4 years old. And there he was, Santa Claus, in the flesh, delivering me and my sister gifts. And this gift exchange was preserved forever on Super 8 film. Now, Santa was amazingly real in his 3 dimensions, dressed in the classic uniform, black boots, red suit, big belt, white beard. And if you look closely, his nose and glasses looked very much like my grandfather's nose and glasses. My beloved grandfather, who unfortunately wasn't in that part of the movie because he had to go do an errand to the corner store, But what is in the movie is my grandfather's return from his errand, carrying this sack of groceries, and my 4-year-old self just sprinting over to Grandpa to gesture excitedly about all the gifts that were brought. Now, there's no sound on this Super 8 film, only my grandfather's expression of absolute surprise and absolute delight. Now, Santa, I discovered at that moment in my 20s, Santa is a shapeshifter. And after I had my children, Santa began looking somewhat like me and my wife. And I knew that Santa existed when my children's faces brightened at the various miracles this person would pull off year after year after year. Now, I believe in Santa Claus as fervently as I believe in the Unitarian Universalist principle of a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. And sometimes that responsible search leads straight into the capital T, truthful heart of an elder dressed in a red suit, embodying the spirit of generosity, encouraging the world to lighten up, to visit the world of imagination, to play a little bit, and to give one of the greatest gifts in the world: wonderment and mystery, and the delight in helping create some. Now, this morning, we have gathered together inside the deep, mysterious, playful, and festive heart of that winter holiday season. We heard a little bit about it during the Time for All Ages. And so we here in North America have recently celebrated or are looking forward to celebrating Thanksgiving, Hanukkah, which begins this week and was the inspiration for our opening hymn, Kwanzaa, winter solstice, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. For the Canadians in our midst, Boxing Day. For the retailers and shoppers, Black Friday and Cyber Monday. And the philanthropists in the room, Giving Tuesday. In short, there is a lot going on. There are feasts, there are parties, there are celebrations, gatherings, caroling, and in quiet moments, likely some wonderment about what the real meaning of all this is. And so let's consider that phrase, real meaning, as we move toward the longest night of the year, winter solstice. Let's keep that phrase in mind, real meaning, as we listen to this short poem by the Norwegian poet Rolf Jacobsen. Jacobsen lived very close to the Arctic Circle, so he knew in his bones what cold and what darkness was. This poem is called Just Delicate Needles. It's so delicate, the light, and there's so little of it. The dark is huge. Just delicate needles, the light in an endless night. And it has such a long way to go through such desolate space. So let's be gentle with it. Cherish it. So it will come again in the morning. We hope. Now this, to me, is a perfect longest night of the year poem, especially considering that line, the dark is huge. Because the dark is huge. The darkness of space, the darkness of the time before we were born, the darkness of time after we die. The darkness of the night when a baby was born inside a barn amidst the very earthy smells of straw, rough lumber, piss, and dung. We rarely think about what that barn smelled like. I encourage you to think about what that barn smelled like. The darkness of that night, accented and punctuated by starlight and stars used as a map, with a guiding star leading 3 wise men, 3 astrologers to that barn. As it reads in Matthew chapter 2, quote, "And the star which they had seen at its rising went ahead of them until it stopped above the place where the child lay. At the sight of the star, they were overjoyed." Now, throughout our time together this morning, it is important to remember that the dark is huge and that there are billions of stars, billions of points of light. Some of them are guiding stars, and all of them are delicate needles of light. And there is one, of course, very precious light, and that's yours. And therein lies the power of our chalice, the symbol of our religion. One small flame dancing atop one slender wick inside huge darkness. You are the flame. I am the flame. We are the flame. We are Unitarian Universalism. We are the light of that chalice in the world of huge darkness. We each and all are those delicate needles. Our human consciousness, our warm skin, our brains and hearts, they are so beautifully and generously on fire right now. In this holiday, holy day season, we're invited to cherish our light. We're to cherish the light of our loved ones and the light of everyone sharing this endless night with us. Now, as Unitarian Universalists, we are committed religiously to light through our first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. And I love how this principle says it very deliberately, every person, and just doesn't blur it with all people. Think about that. The first principle actually sees every person. I love that. Each person is recognized. Each piece of light is seen. And that phrase, every person, touches the poor born in a barn who grew his light into divine light. And the phrase, every person, includes the poor girl born in a tenement who struggles every day to fill their belly. Now, one of the most beautiful holiday light stories is Hans Christian Andersen's The Little Match Girl. Briefly described, a desperately poor girl, barefoot in the bitter cold, New Year's Eve, finds shelter next to a building. She's in the shadows. She's trying to sell matches, but she has sold none. If she goes home penniless, she will be beaten by her father. It's not a comfortable place for a little girl to be, especially in the holiday season. How delicious, she thinks, it would be to light a match in this brutal cold. And so she does. When the flame ignites, she sees visions of a stove that warms her body, and then the light goes out. She lights another, which reveals this great feast just behind the wall, where she's fighting off the wind and the cold. And when that flame goes out, she ignites a third match, and this is how Hans Christian Andersen describes the scene, quote, "Then she was sitting under the most beautiful Christmas tree. It was much larger and more beautiful than the one she had seen last Christmas through the glass doors of the rich merchant's house. Thousands of candles burned on the green branches. The little girl reached both her hands towards them. Then the match went out. But the Christmas lights mounted higher. She saw them now as bright lights in the sky, and one of them fell down, forming a long line of fire. Now someone is dying, thought the little girl, for her old grandmother, the only person who ever loved her, now she was dead, had told her that when a star fell down, a soul rises up to God. Now, Hans Christian Andersen sets an amazing scene. And then this cold, penniless girl lights the entire bundle of matches and sees in the great blaze her grandmother, who lifts the little girl into her arms, and they fly off to a place of bright warmth and radiance. Of course, in the morning, the body of the little girl is found frozen, clutching this bundle of burned matches. There's a mysterious smile on her face. Now, this problematic holiday story has haunted me my entire reading life. I remember at age, 7 or 8, reading a version of this story in some big print kids book and weeping for deep, deep sorrow for this little match girl. Now, these are real tears, that kind of agony and pain that a 7-year-old can really feel. Made me so incredibly sad, crying for her bare feet, crying for the bitter cold that she felt, crying for the warm, loving home that she never knew that I did. And while I knew that the little match girl never really existed, I also knew that there were millions of little match girls the world over. And I was crying. Because just inside the wall where she was standing, there was this great feast with a roast goose and all the trimmings. And while a wall can be protection for those on the inside, it can also simultaneously be a part of that huge darkness for those suffering on the outside. And consider the lights of this holiday story. Christmas tree lights, the stars, the falling star, and most vividly, of course, the matches. The matches for this little girl represent everything, from her livelihood to the source of her visions, and they were the one worldly item that she clutched as she froze to death. In my house, growing up, we had a fireplace, and so we always had a supply of stick matches. And I recall being so inspired by the story, that I took a handful of matches outside into the night, and I lit them all in a bundle, just like the little match girl did. There was this intense sputtering and a blaze, and for that moment, there was nothing on earth brighter or more intense. And my gift to you this holiday season is a copy of a version of the little match girl in a bundle of matches. They're here on the altar in the front. My gift to you this holiday season, as we begin the holiday season, is for you to read the story during one of these long December nights. And then I invite you to go outside. Go outside the protective walls of your home. Go outside in your shirt sleeves and feel a little chill. Think of trying to make a living selling matches. Don't think of it literally, think it metaphorically. Look up at the sky and see whether any stars are visible. Jacobson stars, guiding stars, your stars. With luck, you might see one streak across the sky. And is it the case that the little match girl's grandmother's correct, that a soul is now rising to God? Quite likely. And then light a single match and watch that flame until it goes out. Feel the chill. Light another match and watch that flame go out. Imagine that all you have in the world are these matches. Feel that chill and witness the huge darkness. And so with that story fresh in your mind, with the two small flames fresh in your mind, breathing in the heart of this abundant holiday season, just light that entire bundle and watch that glorious fire catch and sizzle and spread and consume. And imagine that frozen match girl watching her blaze, and within it seeing in her dying the only person who ever loved her. Now, as we know, a match is pure potential. It's one of those miracles that have become mundane. Though it's interesting to point out that commercial matches were relatively new when Hans Christian Andersen published the little match girl in 1845. And like the mundane miracle of a match, all children are pure potential. Even poor children born in a barn, even poor children born in a tenement. In the light of a single match, it can do so much. And here is a miraculous fact. All the stars that you can see in the night sky equals all the matches that have ever been manufactured, which equals all the children who have ever been born. Vast equals vast equals vast. And here's another miraculous fact. A match can be lit exactly as many times as you or I or anyone else will be born. Once. So we began this sermon together with a brief little story about Santa Claus and my grandfather. Much to my mother's great disappointment, my grandfather went to church twice a year, on Easter and Christmas Eve. And when I think about the Christmas holiday, one of my greatest memories is sitting at Emmanuel Lutheran Church with my family near midnight. We always went to the midnight service and concluded that Christmas Eve service, the candlelight service, with the singing of Holy Night. Everyone had been given a slender white candle, and from that one flame from the altar that had been started from the light of a single match, the ushers walked down the aisle, lighting each candle of those who sat along the aisle, and silently down each row, person to person, to person to person, candles were lit, one by one by one, inside huge darkness of that midnight sanctuary. Hundreds of delicate lights. They burned hot at the end of a slender wick. And it was a big deal for us kids because we were allowed to hold fire. We each and all were careful. We were gentle. We were mindful with this flame, with our delicate light. And once the entire sanctuary was filled with people holding their lit candles, the darkness, the huge darkness, was softened. And we sang that ancient song, a cappella. Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright. And each midnight on Christmas Eve, I would look at my grandpa singing. All the kids did this because always there were tears in his eyes. The only time I ever saw my grandfather cry, once a year at the Christmas Eve service. This man died of cancer. He never cried. He never wept. All that pain. And yet every Christmas Eve, his heart cracks open. He never explained why the tears came. And my guess is that the reason was beyond words. This old man, born as poor as Jesus, who was placed in an orphanage because his family could not afford to feed him, who was forced to work as a child, much like the little match girl, who through the miracle of love and the diligence of hard work raised a daughter who became my mother, flame, touching flame, touching flame. And every year, that old man, one thing I learned is never blow your nose with a hot mic. Every year, that old man's face lit by candlelight, the tears sparkling with light, radiant beams from thy holy face. So delicate, the light. They're there's so little of it. The dark is huge. Just delicate needles, the light in an endless night. And it has such a long way to go through such desolate space. So let's be gentle with it. Cherish it. So it will come again in the morning, we hope. As we move ever closer to Hanukkah and to winter solstice, I wish you light and I wish you warmth. As we move ever closer to Christmas, may the exuberant generosity of that shape-shifting saint, Santa Claus, overwhelm your heart. As we move ever closer to New Year, may you realize that calendars are but one measure of time. And someday, perhaps soon, you will have no time left. While today, right now, this morning, your time overflows in great abundance. And now is the time to celebrate all the radiance in our lives, here and now, with our candles, in the warm heart of these, our holy days. Amen. Our closing hymn this morning, we get the great good fortune to do something brilliant and beautiful, and that's give our voices together as one, as we sing our closing hymn, number 118, This Little Light of Mine.
Please repeat after me as I extinguish the flame of our chalice. We extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth. The warmth of community or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Benediction.
My job is not over yet. Our closing words this morning is a beautiful little poem by Antonio Machado. Beyond living and dreaming, what matters most is waking up.